It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it is another edition of Indigenous Storytelling OT. Very exciting. If you are listening in a linear timeline and you are based in Australia, MURU is currently out in Australian cinemas. Also, very excitingly, MURU has been selected as New Zealand's official submission for the 2023 Academy Awards.
Nice.
For Best International Feature Film, and between us, perhaps endorsed by us, right?
Fully deserved, man.
Also, the Asia Pacific Screen Awards have announced that MURU is the winner of ABSA Cultural Diversity Award. Are you ready for a revolution? Let's get on with the show. Friends and conflicted lovers, welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. It's your host, Katie.
And Aunty.
Dive into the waters of community, legacy, and peace through centuries-rich history in Aotearoa. Prepare for the Aunty ambush with MURU this week.
Wow.
How are you feeling, OT? We literally just watched it. Before we get into general stats and information, just an emotional check-in. How are you feeling, my love?
I was a bit weighted down by it all, I think, just seeing how everything transpired and it shook me to my core. And that's where my headspace is at the moment.
But it's important to talk about it, right?
It sure is.
Yeah, because I know even very recently in Django, you talked about not wanting to see black people suffer on screen. I think that extends to brown people as well, right?
Yeah.
But it was definitely done in a way that it absolutely needs to be talked about. And I'm glad it was portrayed in a way that was done with care. While we're here, I just want to lay my love and appreciation to Te Repa Kahi as well as Tameiti. Thank you so much for your time. I had a nice talanua having the interview, and definitely go and check that out if you haven't already. We're going to get into general stats and information. Written and directed by Te Repa Kahi, produced by Rekoa Kahi, Tameiti, Selena Joe, executive producers Timothy White, Richard Fletcher, Cliff Curtis, my heart, your heart, everyone's heart. Kelly Rogers, Te Repa Kahi, Greg Hamilton, Ying Yi, as well as Ryan Hamilton. What a stacked cast we have. Cliff Curtis, continue to give all the kisses. Friends and lovers in Aotearoa, tell Uncle Cliff that Katie says hi. Jay Ryan, Manu Bennett. Oh, we need to talk about Kimiora, not Manu specifically, but I will say, just to bring some levity, I will say if Manu's throwing down, no one's going to beat him. Like in a fist fight.
Yeah.
In a fist fight, even if we're talking about Crixus, if we're talking about Manu, like no one can go toe to toe with him. And then we also have Simone Kessel as well as Tame Iti. Wow. Okay, well, let's get into the portion of first impressions, OT. I had the opportunity to watch it before doing the interview, so I have watched it twice now, and this is the first time literally hot off the pain, but also the joy as well. How are you feeling? Did you know anything leading up to this? And where do we find you now, my love?
I didn't know much about it. I think you talked to me about it after you'd watched it the first time, and from my impression, at least I thought it had to do with the Dawn raids, and you so eloquently put to me, not everything is, not every raid was the Dawn raid in New Zealand. There's more to that.
Unfortunately, there's more than one type of raid in New Zealand, yeah.
Clearly. So I really didn't know much about it going in, and wow, I think just getting poured into the sort of environment and seeing how it's been filmed so nicely, and the characters, from seeing how I resonated with Rusty. We've had so many people in our lives that, throughout our sort of growing up who are all Rusties. So, well,
even Te Repa as well as Tame talked about at many points in life, they were Rusty as well.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that just took me aback. Cliff got his character. Wow. Uncle Tuffy. Can I call him that?
Of course you can.
bloody hell. Like, I think all the characters played well off each other. Even, I didn't really appreciate Kimura's character in this, but there's a lot of Kimuras in our lives, in society.
Who are you fighting?
We know Kimuras,
Unless you are.
If you don't know Kimura, you're a fucking Kimura. No, but seriously, wow.
Fuck you and the Kimura you claim, right?
Yeah. But wow, I think by the end of the movie, I needed a few moments to just compose myself. I think I've seen it all, and then you hear stories about different cultures and different people who are going through a lot of shit as well, and you're like, fucking hell, man. You'd expect better. You'd hope for better.
But you know.
I know. I think naivety is a cloak that we all use sometimes. And
you saw that infographic of all the wars that happened and was started at the time of Queen Elizabeth in power.
Yeah,
Come on now.
I saw that.
We've been knowing, but I think sometimes when it's not really on my daily feed, I sort of pretend it's not there, rightly or wrongly. It's a way of survival.
Yeah. But it's worth telling, it's worth knowing, and I'm glad that I'm expanding my knowledge around this and getting to know about, more about this. So I appreciate that from this angle, and I think it was a very beautifully made movie, and one that you could come out of it not only learning but enjoying to some degree, and at least knowing that the story is being told by the people, for the people, and that's all we ask.
But that is absolutely so important, because you talk about how, because even for me, like if we go into my first impressions, there were many, many, many scenes, obviously many of them having Kimura in there, but there were many scenes in here, especially when it was Maori to Maori, where I felt so fucking uncomfortable. But it wasn't like King Kong level of uncomfortable. Because Friends and Lovers, no one said it was going to be easy to talk about these sorts of themes, but we need to talk about it, and I'm glad that it's being done. But you're right. If you look at the tapestry of cinema, if you're talking about real world events, a lot of it's going to encompass a lot of, First Nation pain. And that's why it's important to have Indigenous storytelling as well. I remember reading the headline about the police raids in 2007. I love that this film was poured out. It was interesting because, even the tagline at the start of the film, spoiler, 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 Aunty ambush, Aunty ambush, Aunty ambush. We're obviously going to talk about the film, but in many cases, when we talk about things that I feel like are very important and also, deliver a lot in quality, I would invite you, if you want to stay, friends and lovers. I think it's easy. It's not necessarily fair, but I think it's easy for a global audience to just take on face value whatever portrayal is being given. There's obviously a whole different case study of Black cinema when you start talking about the Spike Lees, Rest in Love and Peace and Power, John Singleton, Regina King, James Samuel. There's a difference when you have those behind the lens that are telling the stories. And the reason being is because there is that experience, and there's also that knowledge and that concern for the understanding of history. And we see that at the start of MURU, where, it talks about in 1916, with the Prophet Ruakanena, it's not just in 2007, they just happened upon these terrorists in the bush. It's really fleshing out that story. Like if we want to understand it, let's actually understand the story and go beyond what the actual headline is.
Yeah.
These are the custodians and the Indigenous people of Aotearoa. So there's so much more story. And, one of the themes that I have on here is the loaded language of the police and the STG, and we will get to that. But I love how it gave a lens and it gave a focus on the Tuhoi people. In the production notes that was sent to us for MURU, it talks about Tuhoi because of where they were situated and because of the nature of the landscape being being, mountainous and that sort of thing, they were one of the last tribes to experience like European contact. So obviously the resistance can speak to that as well. But let's get into the film. We've already talked about Indigenous storytelling. People talk about New Zealand, and we even mentioned this in our run of Taika Waititi with Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People in particular. New Zealand is doing great in a lot of regards, but it's not impervious to, any sort of blemishes in its history, albeit short, apparently, according to the rest of the world, right? And a lot of that has to do with Maori people. And this film really does center that. And very interestingly, this film was made in support of the government.
Yeah.
So, a lot of rights are being wronged, or, there's definitely a long journey to continue to take in regards to that. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the balance of educating and not telling too much, because we talked a bit about this in The Panthers, which is another New Zealand series, and we do have an episode on that, Friends and Lovers. We talk about how it's not necessarily the responsibility of like the Panthers, for example, or even MURU to educate us. However, if it is being shown on a global scale and most people aren't familiar with the stories, it does become a barrier to that emotional sort of resonance. So I just wanted to talk, at least from your point of view, how did you feel about the way educating the audience and the balance of it not being too much was met?
No, like I mentioned in my first impression, a lot of these things that I didn't know about, and I think they took me through a journey of discovering exactly what was happening without it feeling being done in a sort of heavy-handed way.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things, because at least at the end of the day, you sort of get that, the main narrative that the journalists and the politicians will push.
Yeah.
And that's what many people will just go by. Like you said, just the headlines, even in the day and age of such fucking scrolling Twitter, that's all you get.
That's your source?
But understanding that there's a whole different aspect and a narrative around that's being built and is being pushed that we don't really get to hear much about. And that's what we get to see.
Yeah.
We pull that veneer away and we see people being just ostracized based on fucking ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
It's the charged language of it all that just took me aback.
Yeah.
I think also the most important part of it is, like you said, the government helping to sort of make this as well, is the acknowledging that, mate, shit was done that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the only starting point we can have in starting to amend this sort of fucking relationship with people. And I think when you're telling stories like this, you also create a moment of levities. And we had that in, when we had Taff interacting with the kids or even with the aunties,
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that you get to see the sense of the people and you get to learn more about them as well.
But you couldn't pull wool over Maitara's eyes. Like,
yeah,
he had a sense of the world, like, so sad that he was so young, but he knew what was up.
Yeah.
He knew what time it was.
Yeah. I think the sort of end scene of it all just broke my heart, man.
Because he's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids
he's not going to be the same. And everything affects everyone differently. Majority of the kids probably just going to walk out, remember a day they were trapped in a bus, but others were going to be like, fuck, man. This shit is ridiculous. They killed Taffy. They took everything away that I knew, the stability of it all. They locked me in a bus, called me fucking hostile. Oh, yeah. But I think they did balance it well.
Wait for OT's MTV Unplugged, the criminalization of OT. But you're right. There was a natural centering. There was a natural balancing of levity. And you're absolutely right. There's so many universal themes, even though it was very specific to the Tuhoi people. They were very specific. Like, they were very, like, universal moments where, even you from Kenya, even me, Australian-born Tongan, like, there were definitely moments where we could resonate as well.
Oh, for sure.
Are you ready for our favorite topic, OT?
Mm-hmm.
Personal gain versus the community. Are you for your own people? When it's time to show up, when it's time to pull up, are you for your own fucking people? And obviously there's characters we can talk about, but how do you think it was explored in the film?
We get very contrasting characters in Taffy and Kimiora.
Mm-hmm.
And Taffy is all about the people and the community and helping build and improving the people.
I wrote it down. He said, why are you here in my community and why was I not informed?
Exactly.
And
you juxtapose it against Kimiora and, the sort of base instinct for me while watching it was like fucking Uncle Ruckus, But there's a sense in Kimiora where I felt like, bruh, why are you hating your people?
Yeah.
Where is this hate coming from? Let's dig deep into that. You know, he needed a fucking session with a therapist to dig deep through that situation.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on there.
It was
that I was like, fundamentally, I can sort of see and understand and sort of pick at things and try to pull it apart. But geez, the level he went through, even up until the end, I don't even think his character growth was zilch. The fact that he was brought down and he didn't fucking kill everyone at the end is not growth. It was just me, mate, you've lost. Just let it be.
Well, no, it kind of turned into a white savior with Gallagher stopping him.
I don't even want to chip in it like that. I think it's bigger than that.
It kind of, no, but like Kimiora kind of, because, I literally referenced King Kong earlier. And, especially if black and brown people aren't in the room in films that want to portray black and brown people, we're kind of portrayed as those savage natives, right?
Mm.
And Kimiora kind of became that, but on the side of the white institution. It's like, what are you doing, my friend?
He did. And I think that's one of the things that we really didn't know about him. We didn't get to dig deep into who made him this way, what happened.
Because he was watching very early in the film with him and Gallagher, he was watching a video of Tamaiti. And in my head, maybe it's wrong for me, naturally I assumed he was like, he's the man. Like, that's what I thought he was watching the video for. But no, he wasn't. He was doing a recon.
Mm. Yeah, and he was so against it all.
Yeah. To
the point of he knows everything was bullshit, but he still just kept on pushing.
Like, doing nothing would have been better than what he did.
Yeah. Like, even at the end when we get to the end when Taffy is in a call with Gallagher and the rest of the guys and be like, the guy fucking shot himself, and your guy shot our cop.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
That was the moment of fucking self-reflection where you'd be like, oh man, we fucked up.
But I think that's more of the caveat, and that's more of the premise of the film being a response. Because unfucking fortunately in this world, they don't just shake hands and, cuddle the Care Bears. Like, that's not, like, the government and the police won't admit that they made a mistake.
And they had so many moments in the movie, pivotal moments where you're like, this is where you pull back.
Yeah.
This is where you pull back.
Like, now's your chance, guys.
Now, okay, you didn't take the last chance? Okay, now's the time.
We're trying to reroute your violence.
And they didn't take any of that.
Nah. And they were fucking black ops, man. Like, they were all swatted up. Like, really? In this community, you need to be that strapped up?
Yeah, and I think also talking about are you for your people, we also need to talk about the aspect of Rusty, because he also questions the people. Yeah. He's very angry, and to me, rightly so. And I've mentioned this so many times in a lot of shows that we've covered before.
Look at you leveraging.
No, I remember covering when we did Redford Now.
Yes,
I remember. I was like, okay, you know what? A lot of the time, the community are like, oh yeah, we're for the people. Sometimes you get people who either are misunderstood, they lash out for one reason or another, and the community just looks back on them. They don't do shit. They get caught. They don't do anything until it's fucking too late. Either they fucking end up dead, and that's when they're like, oh, let's do what happened to our king. We loved him. No.
You don't want the placards? You don't want the dollies?
I don't want the fucking dollies for you to realize that you could have done something, because then that's too late.
Yeah.
And I think it shouldn't get to that point. And I understand there's so many wrongs happening on both sides that you shouldn't really look at the community. But I think ignoring it as well is part of the problem.
Hey, I didn't know Kimiora's Manu Bennett is here.
I just think Rusty had a point at the start of the movie being, where were you guys? You're all here sitting, holding kumbayas, talking about being together in a sense of community. But where were you when everything else was happening to me? I got arrested. No one showed up.
Mm-hmm.
I got into trouble here and there. None of you showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So where's this sense of community now?
I would point the lens to the government. I know you're looking at me, but I would point the lens to the government because you're right. A lot of the sentiment at Rama was frozen in time, but it's because it keeps fucking happening. Even without them knowing, the paranoia pays off because they were being surveilled, right?
Yeah.
So they're still dealing with the wounds of I guess the demise of their prophet, Ruakanena. You know what I mean? Like they're still trying to grieve for their ancestors and their kin. So unfucking fortunately, that means Rusty kind of falls through the cracks because they're talking in, I guess, past theologies as opposed to present pain. However, what I would say is what Tamiiti was saying was this is where we do it without police handcuffs. It might not have been the right approach. It might have been the placards a little bit too late. However, it's not for the intervention for the boys in blue. It's definitely not for like the Black Ops level, STG level to come and cause and have lasting pain on innocent children in Tuhoi.
I agree with you. But I also hold the community up to better standards and regard in terms of practicing what they preach as a whole. Because at the end of the day, if you're not there for the people, then what the fuck, man? If you're only there for the people who you feel that are towing the line and who you think are goody two-shoes, then that's not the community aspect of it. You don't go to the top while you leave people behind.
Friends and lovers,
either all make it or you don't.
Friends and lovers, I have Indigenous tax, so I will never with my whole chest say what you're saying.
I will say it because I see it in my own community. I've seen it.
You don't think I have Kimioras in my community?
I see it. I call it for what it is. And I think that's the most I can do. And I think people should also call it because at the end of the day, if you all fucking ignore it and wait for shit to go down so badly that it's irreversible, then it's too fucking late.
So you talk about it for your own people. You might not look like the colonial settlers, but you're going to different cultures and telling them what to do. So you sound like it.
No, I'm not telling them what to do. I'm calling it the way I see it. I can't just sit back and pretend that I can't air my opinion on this because it's something that I've raised and I've seen it in a lot of stuff. And I call it every time.
You do.
It's not, so I have to be consistent as well.
Yes, but be consistent in your own space. be consistent in your sweaty parts of the interwebs, OT.
All right.
I don't know. I will always lean on the broader conversation of systemic inequality, especially when we're talking about Maori people and their fucking land. Like, if we're not going to have that conversation, then let's not have it. And, it's something that if you want to talk about what you talk about, it's something that I talk a lot when we talk about Indigenous storytelling or stories that center Indigenous people. Sometimes it's a talanoa for the fale, Sometimes even if there are themes and it's to be enjoyed and watched by everyone, there's some nuance and there's some conversations, talanoa, that is for the fale, which is the house. Sometimes it's not. And even now, we can be seen as external sort of voices because we're not Maori. But if I talk broadly about like brown people, or even if we talk about this podcast, there are some nuances that our audiences that aren't necessarily our life experiences would understand.
I see that and I agree. I agree with that.
Okay, well, I want to continue on Are You For Your People? There's a lot of talk about Taffy, understandably so because he is the protagonist. But I kind of feel like every Maori character has this sort of conflict. Are you for your own people? And we've talked about Kimiora. I want to talk about Maria. I was not a fan of her.
Okay.
Portaka too, but like Maria specifically, I didn't necessarily care for. It's not as if their assignment was in like Auckland, for example. So it could have been, their targets could have been anyone, right? They were specifically going to Tuhoi to specifically, whether there was any sort of evidence or not, they're going to stick around and find something, right? So she knew what they came there to do. And I didn't care for her conscience coming later on. We were annoyed at Kimiura, but at least we knew where he stood. Like, he wasn't trying to like wriggle out of situations. He was with his whole chest, safe self-hatred, but at least he was doing it with his whole chest. I didn't care for Maria gaining her conscience halfway through and talking about the kids, because why now?
Because people are put in situations that they can reevaluate and be like, this is fucked up. And this is where
interesting.
I said the same thing. They got so many opportunities to be like, mate, this is not right, let's pull back. This is not right, let's pull back. So I'm going to afford Maria the same opportunity and the same courtesy of her seeing a situation and being like, wait, this is fucked up. This is not what I signed up for. This is not right.
Hang on, but then how about Rusty's parents and everyone that was at Rama? Because you didn't give them any graces. Why are you giving Maria graces?
I just think it's different. With Maria, as a character, you have to take your moments of growth, and this was hers.
Okay.
And when she saw the situation on the ground, that this is not right, at least they had this fallacy around of the terrorist cells and all that shit. But when you see it on the ground, putting kids and locking them up in bars because they're fucking hostiles, if that doesn't shake anyone as if this is not right, at least she had the courtesy to see that moment and be like, there's something wrong here.
But how about the Tuhoi people? They could have helped Rusty after they decided not to help him. Where are the graces there? You're doing some jive talking, Oti. You're telling me lies.
No jive talking. I know you're fluent in jive.
I speak jive.
Oh, airplane, man. Fuck it up.
Check out our airplane episode, Friends and Lovers.
My qualm was more, you can't call yourself a community and leave other people to flounder alone. That was my issue. But at least with what we saw here with Maria, she at least accepts that she fucked up and she wants to do something different. And even when Taffy locked her up in the car, she still was like, no, I'm not gonna be bitter here. I'm going to take this because I know this situation is all created weirdly. And I'm going to help Taffy. I'm going to tell them what, they're not going to believe you. They're going to try and cover this up. At least she went out of her way to help a situation that she created.
I don't agree with you. Like, I want to make it very clear that I do not agree with you.
Okay, tell me what you took it as then.
No, because for me, it's like you're picking and choosing which Maori people you want to stand with. Like, it doesn't make sense. And even for me, why are you standing with the ones that choose to be inside of white institutions instead of those that are in their community minding their business? That doesn't make sense to me, mate.
Because I'm giving people an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, but you're choosing which people.
Show me anyone who's grown that I've disregarded.
That's that jive talking. Didn't you hear the quote, let the white man fight the white man's war? You're fighting the white man's war right now. Forget about jive, you're white talking.
Wow. All right. You're ridiculous.
Hey, I'm just calling a white spade as a white spade, man. I also speak jive. While we're continuing talking about are you for your own people, Portaka, thoughts, feelings? First off, I do want to say that I don't like seeing Indigenous people dying on screen, especially when the ratio of them dying is much higher. I don't think there are any white people that died in this, right?
I don't think so, but Portaka, bruh. Come on now. It's one thing.
But I was telling you back in April.
And this is where we get the difference between Portaka and Kimura. Portaka, lives within the community. Kimura feels a bit...
Come on, man.
He's a bit removed.
Come on, Bill O'Neill.
What did I say?
No, you continue.
Portaka,
speak to your crowned court.
Portaka lives within his community. He polices them. He knows them. He knows everything is bullshit. But nah, he still goes out of his way and helps these people. Helps his people be arrested, be subjugated to this shit. He listens while they use that fucking charged language and says nothing.
So does Maria. Maria hears the charged language too, you motherfucker.
She does. But the difference is Maria isn't within the community.
Oh, God.
Portaka is right there, bro, with them.
Are you telling me pre-colonization, your people didn't have divides against each other?
They did. They did. And those are the fucking scums of the fucking world, I tell you.
Well, wait till I have your scheduled Find Your Roots, OT. Do you truly know your ancestors? You come from a long line of jive talkers.
Oh, dear. Mate, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend what Portaka did. At least at the very...
Neither am I, but I'm defending neither of them.
No. At least he also saw a moment where instead of just going and shooting Rusty, he wanted to talk down Rusty. He was like, yeah, let me chase him down. I know this shit is going to be... Because Taffy was like, bruh, go get Rusty. Don't let anything happen. At least he saw that this shit has escalated and he also took that moment to grow.
Okay.
So we're talking about Portaka and Maria growing within the same sort of time span.
I'm not doing this with you, OT.
At least everything bad Portaka has done, at least crescendoed into a moment where he tried to do something good for Rusty. And he died for that.
Interesting. You will be case studies for many millennia to come, OT. I should have meant Silicon Valley reference, friends. I should have meant a Jin Yang app. For this native, for not this native. This native, not this native. Oh, man. The arbitrary lines in the sand that you draw, OT. Wow.
Man, I'm just trying to be as fair as I can be out here.
Okay. I do just want to have a little theme talking about the Moana, which I also mentioned in the interview as well. A lot of healing, a lot of, even when Taffy was learning about his dad being kidnapped, he also went to the Moana. He also went to the water as well as a sense of, re-energizing and gaining that sort of healing before you take that next step. I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, that was interesting to see. I think it was.
You have something against the water too? Was it too native for you?
No,
Did you question the water's motives or what?
It was good to see the sort of the connection between the people and nature and the land and water. It was good to see that they still held some traditions, taking them into the Moana in terms of trying to bring down Rusty's temperature because he was getting quite a high fever. It's all that sort of aspects of people who thought, hey, these primitive people don't know how to live,
Yeah.
And a lot of those things maybe now are sort of eroded. We don't get to see it as much. But it's good to see that it's still there. People are still practicing, because people have been living for fucking centuries out here.
Yeah.
They know how to survive.
But not in peace, right? In conflict with each other.
Of course. Otherwise, how would we know how to be civilized? But yeah, I think I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot.
Something that I wanted to touch on, which we've kind of already touched on already, but as its own, the youth was at the crossfire, we've talked about the kids on the bus. We talked about Maitara and just sad, like everything he had to say, like you could see that he'll never be the same. He had a sense of what the world was. He had a real sense of what the world was. And we also see that at the end, but there were definitely some moments about Rusty as well. I think about the one where Taffy's called to come and check on Rusty because, you know, we also talked about this recently in our Res Dogs episode. I don't believe young people should be locked up for being fucking young, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it might also expand to like destruction of like public property and that sort of thing. But it's not to the level of maximum security, especially if we talk about the high proportions of Indigenous populations in, you know, juvie or in jails. Like if we're going to have a real fucking conversation about adolescence and making your way in the world, a lot of the things that you even talk about Rusty going through isn't specific to Tuhoi. It's just the adolescent sort of experience, right?
Yeah.
Of trying to make your way through the world, not being understood and wanting to be loved firstly and foremost, right? And we see that scene with Taffy as well as Rusty, and it was very emotional. It was emotional watching it the first time. It was emotional watching it the second time. You know, when it was very clear he was upset, you know, right after Taffy dropped him off to his mum started spouting exactly what you're saying, spouting stuff that's culturally accurate, but wasn't necessarily talking about him as a young person. And he was upset. And, you know, even to the point where he's saying to Taffy, they don't want me, they don't want me. That's fucking sad because even Taffy knew at that point, this kid might be right, but what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not much you can do. And I think that's where we sort of need to grow as communities, where we understand the sort of need to adhere to what, you know, the forefathers and all that.
Yeah.
What's been passed down. But times have changed. I think because when I used to watch movies and see relationships people had with their fucking parents, I was like, what is this? You know, it seems so fucking foreign. I think it's good to see that change. And I wanted that for Rusty. I wanted him to be listened to, him to be understood, him to be able to express himself and not feel like, hey, they just want me to be in this mold or they don't want me at all, you know?
Yeah.
He feels quite conflicted in that regard. He feels like no one wants him, no one loves him. And it's hard. Even when Taffy was trying to go and get Rusty while the medical sort of center or station, and one of the aunties was like, nah, leave Rusty to the people who love him.
Oh, man, my heart.
Yeah, because
he doesn't need to be locked up. He doesn't need that hard sort of discipline.
Yeah.
He's a fucking kid, man.
Yeah, 100%, man.
That moment got me. I also give my best wisdom with my bosoms out, but that's a story for another day. Let's move on. We've kind of already talked about it, but I just want to frame it a bit more. I want to talk about the language of the police as well as the STG, and I guess through further extension, the government. It brings me to one of the scenes where they have the briefings, and you have, I believe it's Mooks, but you have another Maori STG officer, and the briefing is talking about Ngā Tamatoa, and in a criminalized sort of sense, because again, friends and lovers, and we also see it in Australia as well, you can't criminalize white New Zealand by acknowledging the pain of Maori people, because that means perhaps the power pedestal that they're on was gained through violent means. Perhaps it wasn't done shaking hands and yes, definitely through treaties, but it wasn't through no resistance. It wasn't through happiness and, again, cuddling Care Bears, right? And we see in this briefing, they're really trying to paint this narrative. And then we also had the footage of Rusty shooting that shotgun, right? Or whatever. I'm not a guns expert, but he shot some sort of gun, right? And they were trying to feed that narrative of Tamaiti radicalizing this youth, this minor, right?
Yeah.
So they're really trying to spin the story. And something that I thought was done very brilliantly in this film is, you know, even with Taffy, when he found Portaka running away in his little camouflage suit, with Portaka as well as Maria, he was looking straight at them. He wasn't talking to Gallagher. He's like, do you believe this shit? We're talking about 1916. Like, do you understand what happened on that day? He was talking straight to them. You know why? Because that's where the main accountability for knowledge transference is, OT.
100%. And it's hurtful because you expect better from the people who live through that, you know? It feels very, because I live in the master's house, I don't have to go through all the other shit.
Yeah.
You know, at least I'm elevated a bit from.
Like, I made it out. What's your problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on now. Be better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is so frustrating and infuriating about all this.
Yeah.
You know, seeing other Maori people do that, you know, be part of such a charged conversation.
Yeah.
Them putting up clips of, you know, making the narrative stick together with a fucking thread.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it's weak. If you know what the truth is, it's weak.
It's weak as, you know.
But to say nothing is to further that narrative, I suppose.
Domestic terrorist cells.
Yeah.
What?
Like, can we calm down?
Hey. Sometimes, man, I was like watching that. I was like, can everyone just calm down for a bit?
Like, let's just
take a breath.
Like, let's just call it what it is, right?
I just wanted them to relax, sip some whatever it is they drink, and see what they're trying to build here.
Yeah.
Because the language they used is not helping situations at all. When Rusty was being chased after, it was, hey, he's got a weapon, he's got a bat. He shot someone.
Yeah.
He's armed.
With a weapon, yeah.
Like, can you calm down, man?
Yeah.
You can clearly see someone's carrying a broom. He rides a horse past you. You see it's a broom or some sort of bat.
Yeah.
What bats have you seen that looks like that?
But it's like they're already, like, they're getting things ready. They're setting stuff up so that through mistake or otherwise, all of their actions will be justified.
Exactly.
And I don't know, like, maybe, I don't know, like, because there's obviously a lot of devastation in the United States, but it feels different when it's portrayed like in New Zealand. It feels like storylines that you would watch in The Shield, you know?
Something Shane would be talking about endlessly.
Yeah, but, you know, I guess it also talks to the injustice and police corruption and the sustained sort of, you know, colonial powers that be. You know, there was also phrases of local military operations. And I remember when we first started watching the film, you said, is this paramilitary? And I was like, don't talk to me. I was like, let's just watch the film. Let's just watch it. I don't know, like, personally, I just want to lay my love and splooshes to our friends and lovers that have made it this far into the episode, because usually you guys are the real ones, are the ones that will love and care for us forever. I don't understand how, you know, even, you know, Uncle Taffy was talking about bush talk, right? Them joking or maybe not joking about the Prime Minister. And it's like, those words are more violent and more threatening to the white institutions than the actual white violence that sustained Aotearoa. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you brutalized all of these people and you're worried about these tiny little words. Fuck off.
Fuck right off. It's annoying as... I think the language is such a big factor in all this because once you change and de-escalate a lot of things, then calm heads will prevail. But once you start using language like that, there's only one way this shit goes, you know, and we see it too many times.
Yeah.
Too many fucking times. Just calm down and realize that you're speaking about people here. You know, lives shouldn't be that easy to discard.
But something you need to understand is, to some people, all people aren't people.
Clearly not, man.
And that's the fucking real word of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, friends and lovers, for joining us another week in the For Your Reference household. Should we go for a happy meal after this, OT?
We should.
We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference, OT.
I'm going to reference Judas and the Black Messiah because we see a lot of overlaying themes between the two movies. I think it's such a different sort of cultures, but still the same fucking shit.
Okay. I will stay in Aotearoa, and I will reference Boy.
Nice.
Again, the highs and the lows, but a lot of love to be shared around. Mm-hmm. If you would like OT to share his love around on Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourFPod.
Write us an email at hello@fpodcast.com.
We're also on OT Jive Talking podcast if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
Good see you. Goodbye.
Bye.